how a promise-driven system might work. I've included a new module here that I've installed. I called it FSP. If you were using this, you probably would just call it FS. But I'm leaving both in here so that you, in the final code, you can see all of these things working together. So I've called this one FSP for FS promise style. Let's take a look at what promises look like. So I've left our normal tweets endpoint, and I just created a new one called /promise, and then the same kind of structure of the path from there on. So let's take our function that we've already written and convert it. Okay, so fs read file is how the async version works. Instead, we're going to do fsp, which has a function called read. All right, and it's going to take the same path, so we'll just copy that. We're going to pass it a read flag. This is for, like, if you're using PHP, you're familiar with these kinds of flags. The B1 is going to make sure we get a buffer just so that it returns basically the same thing that read file did as well. If you left this off, it would actually convert it to a string for you. So then you wouldn't even need to do the toString thing that we're doing later. But I just want to keep it as similar to what we already did as possible. All right, so now we're in promise land, okay? So normally you'd pass a callback if you're in async, but then you have the callback situation that you don't like. So what we'd rather have is just a more logical step-by-step reading. So like we said here, read file, do the IO, and then when you're done, do this function. Promises just kind of rely on that language, and they say, okay, then then, so when you're done reading, do my function, and we'll get a result back. Now that's pretty much it. It's the only difference. Now we're not going to check for errors here specifically, so we're just going to grab all this, and we'll put this in our .then function now. And the same thing, result to string. If we got rid of this B flag, then we wouldn't have to do that. And then we're sending the tweets back directly if there's no ID set, and if there is, we're doing all the stuff we did before. And now it will work, but notice we're not doing callbacks. We're not doing asynchronous callbacks where we go in and nest in and nest in. If you wanted to do something else after this one was done, you would do .then, and then .then, and then .then, and so on and so on and so on. And the whole thing lines up with, okay, I understand that this is happening, then this is happening, then rather than trying to read into these nested callbacks. And people like that a lot because it kind of abstracts away a lot of the weird asynchronous implementation. All right, let's verify this works. So we've still got our tweets endpoint working fine. And if we go to promise / the same thing, it's the same. Promise / tweets is the whole list. And so everything works exactly the same, but the code is maintained slightly differently. So it's really, in my opinion, this is a personal preference kind of a thing, but a lot of people feel strongly about it. And I've also heard many PHP developers tell me that async really bothered them until they understood promises. And so it's an important piece to have.